Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. My name is Mike Avery, back in the studio. Always glad to be here for 3 hours talking about the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan. Pat, I figured out what it is. My volume's a little lower than it was. Can you bump me up a little bit? There we go. I think that helps. Yeah, thank you, Pat. Thank you. Anyway, Mike Avery here in the Outdoor Magazine studio, talking about the history and tradition of the outdoors, the outdoor lifestyle, hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. Although as I look at this week, no. One small topic will take us outside of the state of Michigan. But much of it is Michigan related. So how are you? What have you been doing since we last talked? Have you done anything fun as we work our way through the month of Rocktober? A rock and roll time of year here in the outdoors in the great state of Michigan. Fall color now is really starting to take off, I guess depending on where you are. When I was up in the UP last week, I was actually quite surprised at the lack of color, but things have really developed here, really progressed here in this last week. Even here mid-state where I live in the lower peninsula, we're starting to see some beautiful color. Isn't it a wonderful time of year? It's a beautiful time of year. It's cooler. It's not muggy. The leaves are on fire. Oh, I just absolutely love this time of year. I was in the UP for my bear hunt. This was my 3rd attempt at taking a Michigan black bear. My first hunt was several years ago, hunting with Gary Morgan of Wild Game Dynasty. I was hunting with my crossbow. And 45 minutes into the first sit, a bear came in to the bait and sat there and fed and looked at me. And I decided not to take that bear because I had been waiting 9 years to get a Michigan bear tag. And I said, there's no way I'm going to let my hunt be over in 45 minutes. Never saw another bear. Now, there is a lesson there, and I know there's a lesson there, but I'm okay with that lesson. I found out that if you wait till the 3rd season, you can get a hunt in many parts of the UP every other year, a tag every other year. So that's what I did. That time, 2 years ago, I was hunting with Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer, and I was using my recurve. So talk about making it tough, right? I'm sitting on a bear bait with a recurve, like 7 yards from the bait. There's no room for error there at all. A bear did come in. I didn't get a shot at it. Okay, that was it. That season's over. This year, wanting very, very badly to shoot a Michigan bear, I decided to switch tactics. I stayed with Johnny, but I used a rifle this time, a 350 Legend from Brenton, USA. I thought, how cool is it going to be to shoot my Michigan black bear with a Michigan-made gun? And by using a rifle, I can back up from the bait a little bit. It'll increase my odds of success. And I've got this all in the back of my mind. When I'm up in Ontario back in August, I'm thinking, I'm going to shoot a Michigan bear. So it's not as important if I don't shoot a bear in Ontario. What are we going to do with 2 bears in the freezer, right? We won't eat 2 bears. So I wasn't real concerned with shooting a bear up there. I let a small sow pass. It was the only bear I saw, by the way, on that trip, which is kind of unusual to go to Ontario to hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters, sit there for 3 days and only see 1 bear. But it happens, right? It's hunting. These are critters. Critters do what critters want to do. But I wasn't worried because I knew I'd be hunting with Johnny Bowler in the UP with my Brenton. Johnny had bears coming in every day like clockwork in the middle of the afternoon, which is no small feat in the third season. I was very, very optimistic going into the hunt. There were multiple bears, including 2 really nice bears, coming into this bait as early as 2:30 in the afternoon, as late as 7:30 in the evening. Broad daylight, like clockwork. But then the weather changed. Big cold front came through, rain, a lot of wind. Now, in my limited experience as a whitetail hunter, I'm thinking, okay, cold weather, a cold front gets the animals up on their feet and moving. Apparently, that's not the case with bears. The baits went absolutely dead. And not just my bait, most of Johnny's other baits, and baits from several hunters and outfitters across the UP went dead. I sat there for 4 days, 6 to 7 hours a day, and never saw a bear. Not one. Not one little bear, not one sow with cubs. I didn't see a bear. And the trail cameras proved that the baits had indeed just gone dead. Now, my buddy Scott Gatza, who was also hunting with Johnny on the same property I was, did take a nice bear. In fact, a 350-pound sow. That's a big sow. I have, pictures of that sow on my bait. So I'm thinking in some ways Scott poached my bear. That's a joke. He didn't. He was smart enough to see a window of opportunity and went out there in the morning when the wind wasn't blowing and shot that bear just after daylight. Now, you might say, well, Avery, if you were out there in the morning, you could have shot a bear too. No, because we had a cellular trail camera on that bait and nothing came in. So the gist of it is, I didn't get a bear. Does that mean I was unsuccessful in my hunt? No, absolutely not. I had a great hunt. I got to go to the UP. I got to sit in the bear blind for 4 days, sit there with anticipation, knowing in my mind that at any minute a bear was going to walk out. The fact that it didn't, oh well. I am somewhat disappointed that I didn't get to use that Brenton on a bear, but there will be other opportunities. I will be back up there again in 2 years if the point system stays the way that it is. I'll be back in 2 years. I'm going to try it again. So 3 times now I have tried to get a Michigan black bear, and I have been unsuccessful in every trip. It just makes me want to do it even more. It just makes me even more determined. I will get it done. It just didn't happen this year. But that gives me something to work towards, something to look forward to. Johnny did his job. Mother Nature just didn't cooperate. And as I always say on this show, that's one of the things I love about this outdoor pursuit, these outdoor passions that we have. Ultimately, it's out of our control. In our day-to-day jobs, we press buttons and we look at screens and we touch screens, and there's an immediate response, and it's an affirmative response. It does what we want it to do. You get outdoors, that changes. And that's why I love it. I got to bring this up, and I know you know about this by now. Those 2 dirtbag cheaters on Lake Erie who got caught cheating in the walleye tournament. Now, I'm not a big fan of walleye tournaments in general, personally. I fish for fun, and in my mind, when you start adding competition to it, it changes the entire scenario for me, and that's why I don't like them. I also don't like them because sometimes if you get a dirtbag to begin with, competition and the promise of money tends to bring out the worst in them. And you've probably heard about this, but there was a tournament series, a tournament down on Lake Erie, where the guy who was weighing the fish in, who just happened to be a cop, a Toledo cop, by the way, he's like, you know what? This doesn't look right. He says, we've seen hundreds of fish of that length, and we know that they should be a certain weight. So these 2 dirtbags fish come in 2 to 3 pounds heavier than what they should be, and they win the tournament. The weighmaster / Toledo cop, after the thing is over, he walks over and he says, "This doesn't seem right." He takes out his knife, he zips one of these fish open, and inside the fish, he finds lead weights. These dirtbag tournament anglers had stuffed these fish full of lead weights. They were so purposeful about it, they thought, oh no, these lead weights are going to bang together, you're going to hear it. They took walleye fillets, so apparently they'd been out there on the water filleting fish and dumping the carcasses overboard. They put a lead weight in the fish, they'd stuff a walleye fillet down its throat and stuff another lead weight in there so they wouldn't bang together. But they got caught. Now, the thinking is that they had been doing this on several tournaments ahead of time or before then. Unfortunately, there's no way to prove that. But fortunately, they were disgraced. Their crown, their title for this tournament was revoked. They're shamed in the walleye tournament world. They're lucky they didn't get attacked, beat up by the other anglers who were not real happy. You can find it. Check all over YouTube. It's all over YouTube. You'll see it. They got what they deserved. Coming up after the break here on this week's Outdoor Magazine show, we're going to switch gears. We're going to go from a story of bad people to a story of good people and how guide Vance Gawel guided a blind veteran hunter to a successful bear hunt. That and more after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK, that's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on WIOS, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. In fact, twice each weekend you can hear us there. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain on WMIQ, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination, your fall waterfowl fishing destination, your fall perch fishing destination, your wintertime ice fishing destination, and they do a great job with winterizing and storing your boats as well. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Well, I told you I didn't get a bear, but that's okay. It's okay. It's just the experience of being out there. It is the exercise of trying to get a bear. It's all part of the experience. When you get one, it's just a bonus. Vance Gawel, I think, is a guy who understands that very well. Vance is a Northern Michigan houndsman, a Northern Michigan elk guide, and a Northern Michigan bear hunting guide. And I find him to be very, very, very interesting. And he's had a great fall hunting season so far. And he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Vance, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing real good, but I haven't had the season you have. Man, you and your family are on fire this fall.
We are. It's been great. Started with the youth hunt, true bear season, and elk season. It's been busy. Tired, but and actually I'm sitting in the combine right now. I went till 1 o'clock last night, 1 in the morning, I guess I should say. But yeah, it's been busy, but it's been the best year ever. So.
You started out, both your daughters, you both took deer in the youth season, didn't they?
Yeah, same blind the first day, 5-year-old and the 6-year-old. And they had been practicing all spring. The youngest one asked me, they've witnessed a lot of deer being killed on the farm and all that stuff growing up. And the little one thought she was ready, so we got her a 22 cricket, and she learned how to shoot and be safe. Older one saw the little one doing it and said, well, I want to do that too. So we practiced, moved up, and then eventually had the youth season, and I switched guns on them in a lead sled so they wouldn't feel the kick. And it was amazing. They both killed a deer on the first Saturday there, and I'll never forget it. It was the best hunting experience of my life.
People say, "Oh, a 5-year-old can't kill a deer. The dad must be doing it." To which I say, "Baloney," and you're proof of that.
I have no interest in going into youth season and killing a spikehorn and a doe. One killed a spikehorn, one killed a doe. We just decided we're going to shoot the first legal deer in the field, and that's what we did. There was a couple 120-inch 9-point, 10-point out there on the other side. Didn't matter. It wasn't what we were there for. So if I want to kill a deer, we can kill deer whenever we need to with the farm and everything. And we don't kill bucks with farm permits. We kill does. And I don't even have any interest in killing bucks anymore. I put my wife in a blind and help her. She likes to hunt.
And she
she
got her first bow kill this fall?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, well, October 1st, opening night. She killed an 8-point behind the house, not even on the farm, behind the house, and with her bow, and that was her first bow kill. She's killed a bunch of bucks in her life, but that was the first archery one. So.
Well, and then to top this young season off, you scored on something that you had been working hard on for a long time, Vance. Tell me about that hunt.
So it was a bear hunt. I had a gentleman from an organization called Hunters for Life link up with me, and they help people with cancer, whatever, disabilities, get bear tags and get set up and hunt a bear. He hooked me up with a gentleman from Gaylord. I live right outside of Gaylord, and Major John Turnbull was his name. He got blown up by a roadside bomber in Syria in 2019, and that day he lost his vision. So 100% blind. So we started baiting for him. I run hounds, but that could potentially be a tough situation, getting someone with limited sight abilities or no sight into a tree if it was in a bad place. It just worked out where the bait worked the best, and that's what we did. We baited for him all summer once it became legal, and had a couple spots. A couple baits went dry. You know how that goes, but I had some good people with backup plans and backup spots for me, and it all worked out. Obviously, it wasn't that easy because I was running bears at the beginning of the week in Houghton in Baraga, and then that second season is the same as the Red Oak season. But my dad was helping John and his father get set up in the blind until I got back, and then I could finish helping them. But it was pretty interesting how they do it. Like I said, legally blind, 100% legally blind. His dad sits with him in the blind. They're linked up between his scope with a Bluetooth into his iPhone, and Dad watches the screen. John aims, gets the crosshairs on the bear. Dad says left, right, up, down, pull the trigger, and that's how it worked. They've killed elk, they've killed moose in Maine doing that, and they've been very successful. And we were able to get him I believe he's 162 pounds dressed, a boar, somewhere around Thursday of the Red Oak season. So,
wow,
it was one of the most satisfying, fulfilling outdoor experiences I've ever had. And they've become friends now, and they're going to be on the farm for the Independence hunt coming up, a disabled deer hunt on October 13th. I'm going to set up for that, and we are going to try to kill the biggest buck we can find during that season. So,
man, that is so cool. People talk about technology in the outdoors. It's gone too far, but this is a great example of how technology helps people to continue to enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was flawless. I mean, double lunged it, and the video is amazing. It's so crystal clear. It's just, he's probably, I know he's a better shot than I am. So,
well, it's why would you take on this challenge? I mean, you're setting yourself up for failure, Vance, because number one, if it doesn't get done, you're disappointed. But more importantly, you've disappointed this disabled war hero. Why would you even put yourself in that situation?
I just felt like I owed him for what he's lost, and what he's done, giving me the ability to hunt every day and farm every day, and what he sacrificed for me to do that. So there's no way I wasn't going to make it happen.
Well, what a great fall. What rewarding hunts you've had so far already.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I started out, I took a buddy up to Houghton, and we treed I don't even remember how big it was, a big bear. I think it was 262 dressed. Ran up there on Sunday, got that bear by Tuesday, ran back to help John Turnbull with his bear. We got that taken care of. End of the week, got another bear over in Atlanta with the dogs. It's just a blur. And then at some point, the elk season started, and we went through all those elk as well. So it's been, like I said, an absolute blur.
A blur, but very cool and wonderful experiences. I mean, you sent me a picture the other day, a beautiful picture on a frosty northern Michigan morning of a beautiful Michigan bull elk, and you said on that particular morning they were bugling like crazy. Yeah,
last Saturday and Sunday it would have been. They were just screaming all morning. That morning with that picture I sent you, it was 18 degrees here and just rutting like crazy, bulls everywhere. But it's quite an experience to get to witness that as well.
Vance, it sounds to me like you've got a piece of heaven right there on earth. You've got bears, you got big whitetails, you got elk. I mean, how cool is that?
It's an amazing variety here. It wouldn't go anywhere else, that's for sure. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
But your full-time, your real job is what, a farmer?
Yeah, I'm farming, and like I said, I'm in the combine right now. So it's going to rain. It's raining tomorrow morning, so if we might go for 20 hours here today.
No kidding.
We'll see what we can do. Yeah.
When you're up on that combine, I grew up on a farm, but I've never set up in a combine. I've always thought, what a beautiful view of the world that must be, because as you're taking those crops off, any critter that's in there, you're going to get a good look at it.
You see everything. When I start combining corn, bears in the corn. Later I see elk in the corn a lot as well. But yeah, I see a lot of nice bucks, a lot of deer. Colors are just really popping here as well, so it's beautiful right now.
And we had a conversation last fall. From what you've seen, you're convinced that bears actually den in the cornfields?
I know they do. I've had some instances where you couldn't get to the corn, the snow came on, and they'll pull the stalks. And I made this comment when I posted that video last year, and somebody said a nest. It's not a nest. I didn't mean it was an actual nest, but it looks like a big bird nest. They pull the stalks up over them, and I've come across them in the field combining in late November and early December before. And last year I did as well.
Wow.
They'll stay out there all year because the bears don't stay down all winter. They get out of their dens and walk around their den a little bit, but there's all that food and there's cover if the corn's standing. So.
Well, Vance, you get a chance to see some beautiful things, but more importantly, I appreciate the fact that you embrace the opportunity to share those experiences with as many people as possible. Your family, your clients, this blind veteran. I mean, Vance, you're a great guy for doing it, and I wanted to thank you publicly for everything you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's fun helping people out here, and people throw around the guide name or the guide word, but I've got a guide license, but I don't take money for bear hunting. I take friends or people like this that need help and do it for nothing. So
wow, and that says a lot right there, Vance. I got to go. I know you got to get back to work. Appreciate your time, Vance Gawel. Just a stand-up guy, in my opinion. He keeps inviting me up. I haven't made it up there yet, but I'm going to do that sometime soon, because when you see the pictures and the video and you hear his stories and hear of his experiences, we're blessed right here in Michigan, and Vance is right there in the middle of it. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, the story of another guy who had a successful bear hunt, but it didn't end out so well, courtesy of some Michigan wolves. That's right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Brenton USA Hunting Rifles. Michigan-made AR-style rifles, highly accurate, lifetime guarantee, made in Lansing. Unfortunately, I didn't get to use my 350 Legend made by Brenton on my Michigan bear hunt, but I will have it out in the deer woods this fall as well. Really fine guns, highly accurate. It'll change the way you look at ARs. You can get them at Jay's right now, Jay's Sporting Goods. I would encourage you to go there. If you can't make it to Jay's, you can go to the website, BrentonUSA.com. That's BrentonUSA.com. Use the promo code Avery and get $100 off. That's BrentonUSA.com. Yes, I know. It's become very clear, very apparent now at this point in the show that I did not get my Michigan bear. I mean, a little disappointed, but it's hunting. I mean, I'm okay with that. It's part of the challenge. I did want to get a bear, though, because I like bear brats. I like bear meat. And it would be real disappointing to actually take a bear and not get to enjoy the rewards of the hunt. That's what happened to Tony Clor. He's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk more about that. Tony, welcome to the show. Nice to have you with us. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, Mike. Thanks.
Listen, so tell me, where were you hunting, first of all?
I was hunting in Big Bay, which is north of Marquette there.
Bow hunting, gun hunting?
Yeah, I was using a bow. So me and my buddy both were. We were on part of the group hunt, and we hired a guide there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're hunting over bait, obviously.
Yep.
How many days were you on stand before you had a critter come in?
So our guide was pretty adamant about all-day sits. So, I was in the stand for 2 full days, the first 2 days of the season, and I was about 20 hours. So it was a long time.
It's fun, right? There's nothing we'd rather do, but it's hard to sit all day like that.
Yeah. The first couple of days of the hunt were pretty warm. We had a south wind. I mean, up there, if it was north wind, it's not too bad because you get some shield from the lake, some cooler temperatures. But, man, I had a south wind on the second day, and I was dying. It was really, really hot.
So did you have a goal for yourself in mind? Were you holding out? Did you intend to hold out for a particular size bear, or what were you thinking going into it, Tony?
Well, my buddy and I both talked about it. This was our first Michigan bear hunt, but we've hunted in Canada before, and being the first bear hunt for us both, we had decided whatever came in first was what we were going to shoot.
Sure. So on the second day, right? What time during? Was it the third day or the second day that it came in?
It was the second day, so it came in about 7-ish, right around 7:15, something like that, on the third day, and we got to our stands both days about 10 o'clock.
You put your time in.
Yeah, yeah, we sure did. So, we had a lot of camera footage, and the guide was great. I mean, he was absolutely awesome when it came to keeping us in the loop on what was going on, and he was sending us photos, and he pretty much had the bear's pattern, so he knew what was going on. And then, it was really weird on the first day, that I got shut out because he's like, that should not have happened. And then, the second day, he thought for sure, they would be in right around 2 o'clock, and same thing. I mean, it took all the way till almost, that last hour of the day.
Well, I know how that goes. I know that feeling. So the bear comes in. Was it sneaking in? Did it come in like it owned the bait? How did it act?
Really, it kind of popped out, and then it was a little apprehensive. It was on its hind legs, and it was looking around, and it almost went to like all sides of the bait and looked around before it actually sat down to get into it. It was really kind of odd. I actually thought it was trying to win, get a gauge on the wind, but well, I think we'll get to that part of the story in a minute.
What size bear was it, Tony?
It was a pretty decent size. I mean, it was a little over 200 pounds. I'd say it's between 2 and 250, so it was a really good Michigan black bear.
So the bear comes in. Do you let it settle down before you shoot it, or do you take that shot as soon as you get the first opportunity?
Oh no, man. It was, I've been practicing all year. I wanted to make sure I put a good ethical shot on it. So in being a bow hunter, you don't really get those second chances. It's like with a gun, you could pull the trigger twice sometimes, right? But you don't get that with a bow. So I waited. I mean, I drew on it 2 times because it would stand and then sit, stand and sit. And then finally the third time, he kind of sat right at me, and I was able to put a shot, and I got it right in the chest. So it didn't go far at all.
Wonderful. We got to take a break here, Tony. We'll tell the rest of your story after the break. We're talking with Tony Clor, who was hunting bears in the UP. I want to follow up, though, to Vance Gawel. He told me during the break he does have a Facebook page. Vance is the guy we just talked to about bear hunting and elk hunting in the northern lower. It's C&G Guide Service on Facebook. C&G Guide Service on Facebook. So check that out. He does charge for elk hunters. My name is Mike Avery. This is the Outdoor Magazine Show. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Do not hesitate to reach out to me with your questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, questions for the Ask Avery segment as well. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll hear the rest of Tony Clor's story about losing his bear right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Carroll on WKYO 1360 AM, WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. And you can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's mucc.org. That's mucc.org. Right now, we're in the process of hearing the story of a bear hunt in the UP. Tony Clor has been sitting in the stand for a couple of days. He has a nice bear come in. Tony, you put a good shot on it, and you put it down almost right away. I mean, you could hear the death moan, right?
Oh yeah. I had got down, I checked. My arrow was covered in blood. So I walked up because there's no cell service there. I walked up to the camera. The guide had a cellular camera there, and I let him know that everything was good. And I climbed back up in my stand, and it was probably about 10 minutes after I climbed back up that I had heard the death moan. So it didn't go far at all. Maybe 40 yards.
So you're waiting for the guide. How long were you waiting for the guide before he gets there?
Probably about 20 minutes or so. Not too long at all. Maybe 25. Okay. So about the whole time was probably a half hour by the time I'd shot, and then that Aaron had showed up.
All right. So you get down, and then you follow the blood trail. You find the animal.
Well, yeah, actually, there wasn't a great blood trail, so he had brought his tracking dog. So we actually let the dog do the work, and she found it within a few minutes, but didn't make a sound. so it was she walked basically right to the area and was circling. I mean, it was a very thick brush, so she was circling, and Aaron got a little, he's like, this dog should be going nuts right now. I don't know what's going on. And it's like, let's just walk over there. So we walked over to where it was, and we found the bear, but it wasn't a whole bear.
What happened?
Well, so in the 30 minutes, essentially, 35 minutes from the time that I shot her to the death moan and the time we recovered the bear, the wolves had got to it and ate most of the rib cage and part of the hind quarter.
In that 20 minutes, a half hour.
Yep. Yeah. It was crazy. I mean, we were, we were like, man, it's like, this can't be my bear. There's no way. Right. So, I mean, and so we felt like, other parts of the bear, right, the neck and stuff, and it was still hot. And we're like, yeah, that's the bear. I mean, this is my bear. I couldn't believe it.
Did you know there were wolves in the area? I mean, we know there are wolves everywhere, right? But did you know there was a pack of wolves right there where you were hunting?
I didn't. They had mentioned that they had saw a wolf on the road, which was about 3 or 4 miles from, where I was hunting at. So, but it didn't necessarily dawn on us that there'd be a wolf right there, in that spot.
Well, so, I'm thinking, I mean, you're sitting, just a few yards from where you recovered this animal. I'm shocked that they didn't make noise while they were feeding on it. They're growling or barking or something. You didn't hear a thing, Tony?
Not a thing. So the only thing that, and this all dawned on me after the fact, is when I shot, right, and I hit the bear good, right? So I had heard something off to the opposite side of me, like, kind of take off in the weeds. I thought perhaps it was another bear or something like that. After we put 2 and 2 together, the guy thought that it was more than likely a wolf that was probably stalking this bear, kind of using the bait pile as like, its own little bait. Yeah, its own bait. So,
well, this explains why the tracking dog got hinky when she got up to the site. So listen, what happens in a situation like this? Do you go to the DNR and say, hey, wolves got my bear, can I have another tag?
I did. I called, and this was a little bit after the fact, but I did tag the bear because I thought it was the right thing to do. And I called the DNR and I asked them, I said, hey, this is what happened. This was the situation. My bear was eaten by wolves within 30 minutes, and the wildlife division said, oh, you can call the licensing division. Maybe there's something that we can do for you. Well, I called the licensing division. They said, oh, that's not our call. It's the wildlife division. So they put me back and forth between the divisions. And finally I said, hey, what was I supposed to do in this situation? Because nobody wanted to give me another tag. I said, should I not tag the bear? And they're like, oh, we can't tell you that. And I'm like, well, okay. So what should I have done? So did nothing for you.
So did they issue a second tag or no?
They did not.
Did not.
No.
All right. Were you able to save any of the meat off the bear, Tony?
Yeah, I mean the one hind quarter was okay, and then the front shoulders were going to be okay. But still, I mean, I've been applying for 7 years, right, to get this tag, and we're on a group hunt. So, my buddy and I wanted to go together. I mean, at a minimum, if I want the first hunt, I'm another 5 years out, right?
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Well, listen, Tony, I'm sorry this happened to you. It was an interesting experience, that's for sure, and I appreciate you sharing it with us here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. Hopefully next time around you'll have better luck. That's going to wrap up this first hour of this week's show. Coming up in hour number 2 after the break, Captain Jeff Godi of the Michigan Experience talking about waterfowl hunting. Then Nick Green of MUCC checks in, plus this week's Ask Avery segment. That's coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network, heard on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan, here for 3 hours each week, talking about the history and tradition of the outdoors here in our great state of Michigan. And I like to make the distinction that this is a radio show. First and foremost, it's a radio show, and it's so easy these days to get confused on this. And I know probably from your perspective it doesn't matter. Okay, is it a radio show, a podcast, or whatever? Because podcasting has become ubiquitous. Everybody has a podcast. Everybody talks about podcasting. I have people say, hey, I heard your podcast. And I say, oh, great, where'd you listen to it? And they give me the name of their local radio station. Well, if you listen to it on your radio station, it's not a podcast, it's a radio show. And the only... I know, I shouldn't care. It shouldn't be a big deal, but in my mind it kind of is, because everybody has a podcast. But how many people do you know that have statewide syndicated outdoor radio shows? That's why I like to make the distinction. And I think the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine Radio, when you can, is on your local radio station. You get your local news, weather, and sports. Plus, the radio stations get the content of the show before the podcast version is even made available. But isn't it nice to know that there is a podcast version available if your local radio station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal? You can hear that podcast just about anywhere. On my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. On my Facebook page, on Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, Apple Music, yada, yada, the whole gamut. Anywhere you can listen to a podcast, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show, even on YouTube. I know it doesn't make any sense, but I put it up on YouTube, and people watch/listen to it on YouTube every week. Speaking of podcasting, a blatant promotional plug here, I also do monthly podcasts for Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest boats, Primal Tree Stands, and Polar Craft boats. In fact, when we're done today, we're going to do a twofer. We're going to record this month's Offshore Tackle podcast and this month's Primal Tree Stands podcast as well. So keep an eye/ear out for those. So far this week, we've talked about what? Bear hunting. We've talked about elk hunting. We've talked about the cheaters on the walleye tournament trail down in Lake Erie. One thing we haven't talked about, one thing I don't talk about very often, and I admit that I am very weak in this area, and that's the topic of waterfowl hunting. Here in our great state of Michigan, we are blessed that we have to make a choice. There are so many different outdoor activities that you can't do them all. So I've decided to concentrate on walleye fishing, turkey hunting, bear hunting, and just a little bit of deer hunting. I have hunted waterfowl before with my buddies who are hardcore waterfowl addicts. And you know what I decided? I decided it was just plain too much work. That's why I have so much respect for the people who are hardcore waterfowlers, like Captain Jeff Godi of the Michigan Experience. You might know Jeff from his summertime walleye fishing on Saginaw Bay, but he's out there in the fall this time of year as well, and I want to talk about that. Cap, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. So how's your fall going?
Well, it's been fun. We had a good early goose season, shot a few teal in the early season. So fall has been fun. Nice change of pace, walleye fishing all summer. It's always nice to do something a little different, a little variety.
How was your summer season out there, Jeff?
When it wasn't blowing out of the east, northeast, we had good fishing. And the recovery days after those winds were sometimes tough, but for the most part, it was a good year. There was a lot of fish in the system. A lot of times from Linwood, we were traveling over to the other side of the channel to find some fish. Maybe they were right there in front of us. We just didn't know it, but it's hard to turn down a good bite that you have, even if you have to travel. So, yeah, all in all, it was a good year.
Good year. And I my sense is actually the size of fish were a little bigger this summer, too.
I would agree with that, yes. Yeah, they were that average size. We're seeing a lot of bait. I think the forage is there for these fish. So, yeah, all in all, a good year. We just got to keep that wind down a little bit.
Well, if you figure out a way to do that, you let me know, okay?
All I can say is it better blow in October and November like it did in June and July.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you do any fishing in the fall, or are you hunting at that point?
Pretty focused on the waterfowl hunting. So the boat's put away. I got some buddies got boats in the water if I did want to go, but I'm pretty locked in starting Saturday, hunting just about every day through, I think, December 4th.
Wow.
So I've got Thanksgiving with the family. We do a family day on the opener. That's a tradition we've done since I was a kid. And other than that, we're doing a lot of guiding.
So tell me what you mean by the fact that you don't want the wind in the summertime, but you do want it in the fall.
Well, to get out and have a comfortable fishing trip, you want a little breeze, but you don't want that 15, 20, 25. So we like a walleye chop, but not a lot more than that. When it comes to the waterfowl hunting on the bay, depending on where you're hunting, if you're hunting the shoreline areas, the marshes, when it's kicking up, that usually keeps the birds moving, and that's good for us. Moving birds means more opportunities to get birds in your decoys. So windy for duck hunting, not so much for fishing.
So are you hunting resident birds, or are you hunting flight birds that are coming down from the north, or a combination of?
I've always said that we get a couple migrations. We get a calendar migration, and the birds just show up, and you can't put your finger on why they're here, other than just it's the calendar. It's the time for them to show up. And then I believe we get weather-influenced migrations when things start freezing up north. When they can't find open water, when they're having trouble finding food for the diving ducks that don't go inland to eat but stay on the water, then they're just forced to move down. So we don't want any cold in Canada just yet. We want to be able to, we have local birds here that we can hunt for a while, and then birds will trickle down, and then we'll get those hard freezes up north. They'll just keep on pushing them down. If you could release them every week or so, it'd be good for us.
And can you tell when you're hunting right away when a flock comes over or whatever that, okay, these are local birds versus birds that are migrating down?
Yeah, I wouldn't say maybe geese. We're out goose hunting, and their local birds are flying a little bit lower, trading from area to area. And then when we get those flocks, we had them in mid-September. They came down. They're really high. It's amazing how you can sometimes call a flock or break a few off with some really aggressive calling and flagging. And I've always thought of those as migrating birds. A local bird has no reason to fly that high to go from point A to point B. But when we get our migrants, a lot of people call them molt migrants. They're the bachelors that went north for the molt and then come back down mid-September. And those you can usually tell. Duck-wise, not so much. You get an idea if there's big masses of birds sometimes coming from really high, kind of like those geese. I would say it's a flight group just newly arriving. But day in, day out, I would say it's tough to tell a flock of ducks and say it's a migrant versus a local.
I've heard that term molt migrators before, and I never knew what it meant, so I appreciate that, Jeff.
Yeah, that's how I understand it. As I read and talked to people, the groups that just go up and spend the summer up north into Canada, and when they come down, they can be pretty gullible. They're for these first few days that they arrive. A lot of fun.
So, what's your preference? Are you more of a goose hunter or a duck hunter?
Ducks for sure. Goose hunting opportunities now in Michigan are just crazy, better than we've ever had it. But the duck thing is just more my style. But I like it both, and we've had a nice month of chasing geese. When I was young, I remember one goose a day, stopping at noon down by Shiawassee. The goose management units were in existence then. They were really trying to protect those Canada geese, and now it's 5 geese a day for like a 107-day season. So
yeah, there's no more protection now. Let's kill all those big flying rats, as far as I'm concerned. I say that somewhat in jest, but there's some seriousness there too.
Oh, I think the same way when I'm walking in my boat or my customers in my boat.
Exactly.
Goose crap everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Although I tell you, the marina there, Travis and Linwood, he did a good job of controlling the geese with his little string trick around the rocks. And hats off to Travis. Nice job there.
Mm-hmm. And the marina we're talking about is Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. And that's where you're based out of, right, Jeff?
Correct. That's my fishing. I do some duck hunting on the west side, some on the east side of the bay. So, but yeah, the fishing headquarters is definitely Linwood Beach Marina.
Your website for the Michigan Experience, themichiganexperience.com, themichiganexperience.com. I know they can book fishing trips there. Can they book waterfowl hunts with you at that website too?
Yes, yeah, and that's basically a contact. I don't have like a calendar to book, so it's just a contact to get a hold of me, either through email or a phone call, and then we set it up. Gotcha.
TheMichiganExperience.com.
Yep.
We're talking with Captain Jeff Godi, very well-known summertime Saginaw Bay walleye captain, but he also is a hardcore waterfowl hunter on Saginaw Bay in the fall this time of year. We got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll talk more about that, some of the finer points, how to get started, maybe where to go. I'm not going to ask him to give up his honey holes. That's after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sandusky on WMIC. That's 660 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM, 94.9 FM. And you can hear us in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Michigan-based Boning Archery, a leader in the archery industry for, since 1946. So what is that, 76 years now, I think. Company started when Mr. Boning himself invented a product called Ferrule-Tite to glue broadheads to, at the time, were wooden and aluminum arrow shafts. These days, Boning continues to innovate, come up with new products, new designs, new manufacturing processes. As you are in the woods this fall, I would bet that you have something from Boning on your rig, or at the target range, something from Boning on your setup. If not, I think you should check them out. The website is boning.com, B-O-H-N-I-N-G, boning.com, a great Michigan company, been around for 3/4 of a century. How cool is that? B-O-H-N-I-N-G.com, boning.com. While you are online, I would encourage you to check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And while you're cruising the web, head on over to themichiganexperience.com, themichiganexperience.com, the website of Captain Jeff Godi. He is a Saginaw Bay walleye captain in the summer. This time of year, he's out there chasing waterfowl. Jeff, let's talk about your setup. Tell me about, do you have blinds out there? Are you setting up out of boats? How does this work?
Yeah, for probably 18 years, I ran a big floating pontoon blind. And as the bay water came up, became a little more difficult to manage hunting on that, bigger waves. We couldn't get out of the pontoon anymore to move our decoys around and waders. So the logistics became pretty tough. So I was lucky enough to find a 24-foot Sea Arc, big modified V with a 90 horse on it, tiller, and we're hunting out of that now as a boat blind, and that's allowed me to hunt different places, maybe not be strapped to a spot where the blind was. So I've really learned to love that. I mean, we did it for years, on and off, but solely hunting out of that big Sea Arc now, and it's a lot of fun. So
if I remember right,
deep water.
Years ago, when you used to hunt the east side of the bay, you guys had blinds set up, right? That you would just take hunters out to and hunt out of the blinds.
Correct. Yep, I had a little oven on board, propane oven. We make coffee out there, throw some pastries in the oven, and we had the seats and shooting windows, and we transferred gear from our transport boat to the blind, and hunt right out of that blind in that specific spot. So basically, we're doing the same thing. It's just the blind's not there. The boat is our blind, and we kind of hunt where we choose to hunt on a given day and a given wind. And I do like that. As the water comes down, there are thoughts of going back to that blind, but I do love the versatility of the boat, and I don't think I'll go back to that.
You mentioned wind again, wind direction, wind speed. That's a big factor, isn't it?
It is. And for the last few years, we've been able to hide behind some weeds on those windy days and get out of the waves on the pontoon. We took it right on the chops because it was out in the open water. So, wind is a good thing, keeps the bird moving. It sets them up typically when they come into the decoy spread, kind of like an airplane. They like to land into the wind. That wind speed kind of keeps them in the air until it's time to set down. So, wind is an ally. Wind is my number one ally.
Do you hunt with a dog?
I do have a retriever. The current retriever is Link, and he's a funny character. Does a good job. Makes you proud a lot of times and embarrasses you a number of times through the season. But I guess that's the fun of having the dog on board, is that personality.
Oh, that's for sure.
I'm sure I'm probably embarrassing him at times as well. So probably goes both ways.
Yeah. When he looks at you and said, "I can't believe you missed that bird."
I would probably say I didn't miss it. They did.
Yeah. So what about decoys? How important is your deke spread?
I do a lot of open water hunting. So in that situation, decoys are the thing. The big water birds, redheads, bluebills, canvasback, those open water birds. And later in November, we hunt old squaw and we're running around out in some deeper water. But they key in on the decoys. They want to be by their own kind. The ducks like to be with ducks, I guess. So the more we have on the open water, the better. Marsh situations, you can get away if you're in a little quiet spot, a few decoys. But big water stuff, we're running typically somewhere around 100 decoys.
Wow.
And that seems to work pretty good.
Any particular pattern you put them out in?
When we're out on the big water, we're running long lines. So kind of like the old Elmer Fudd cartoon, they're connected to the line, and I'll run 6 or 7 lines depending on the situation. So the old one of my customers coined it the highway of death. It's basically a group of decoys, strings running parallel on the outside of the spread, a nice gap right through the middle, and then closer to the boat we have 2 or 3 more strings. And if they fly in the middle, they can fly right through that chute and not fly over a decoy. And it seems like those birds like to land or try to land right in the middle. Decoys on either side. They got birds ahead of them, birds behind them. Must be a security thing, but that pattern has worked well for us for many years.
So what are the regs these days? When I played around with waterfowl hunting several years ago, there was a point system, and for me it was terrible because I couldn't identify ducks on the wing. How does it work these days? Is there still a point system?
Well, we have a 6 duck limit, and you're allowed to shoot 2 redheads, for example, 3 wood duck. You can shoot 6 teal, anything to make up that 6, or a combination to make up the 6. So not quite a point system. It's not like, I believe when I was young, I think 1 or 2 hen mallards and you were done. 1 black duck was like 100 points.
Yeah.
If you shot that first thing in the morning, you were done.
Yeah.
So the situation now, if you can identify birds, you can chip away to your 6 duck limit. So there's still a emphasis on knowing what you're shooting at as far as the species of the bird, or sometimes even the sex. You can shoot more male mallards than you can hen mallards. So it's really not a bad system. I believe pintail is the only single duck. I got to look at the regs this year, and they didn't print them out. I haven't seen them in print, so we'll go online and do that online thing. But I believe a pintail is the only single bird. Other than that, I think you can shoot at least 2 of every other one. But I'd have to be sure. Don't quote me on that.
No, I won't. But canvasbacks used to be off limits. What about these days?
Yeah. Yeah. Now we're 2 a day.
Oh, really?
So
it's like geese. It's like geese.
Yeah. Yeah. They bounced back enough. And, as a lifelong waterfowler, sometimes I scratch my head. I think, man, why'd they go to 2? Why wouldn't they just do 1 and let them really recover? But it's people that do the counting and go to school for that kind of stuff know what they're talking about. That's where it's at. So I tell you, hear people say, hey, these are the good old days. And for me, starting out in the late 70s hunting, the these are the good old days as far as I'm concerned. I mean, massive goose limit, 6 birds a day for ducks, a 60-day season. I mean, I remember some lean times when I was out of the service, 30-day duck season, 3 ducks a day. And, you know, we doubled both of those. So, yeah, good times right now, that's for sure.
So you grew up duck hunting. I look at, you know, when I was a kid growing up on the west side of the state, we didn't duck hunt, we pheasant hunted. But it sounds like over here on this side of the state, this was a common way for kids to grow up. You went out in the bay and you hunted ducks.
Yes. Yeah, my dad took me at a very, very early age over by Steebling, and I fell in love with everything about it. I didn't have to be quiet, and that helps. And you can move around, and you can eat a sandwich, and I could talk to my dad, and when the birds came, you were quiet and hunkered down. But other than that, you could visit, and it's still like that today. Like I said, I've got an actual little propane oven in the boat. We're eating, laughing, joking, drinking coffee, and here comes some ducks. You're quiet, bang, 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 and back to eating, laughing, and joking. It's a real social event, as I've coined it. You can enjoy people, enjoy the visit, and hopefully get in a little shooting as well.
See, that is one part of duck hunting that I can relate to and think it is cool. You're not quiet. You're not hunkered down. I mean, if you want, you can sit out there and smoke cigars and bust your buddy's chops. I mean, yeah, that part of it does seem pretty cool.
And there's a lot of that going on. Trust me. Yeah.
So what does somebody need? I mean, when they book a trip with you, you're not providing all the gear. You're not providing the shotgun. You're not providing the waders. What do they have to show up at the boat with to go hunting with you?
I would encourage, the shotgun, probably a modified choke. Make sure it has a plug in it. Just on the legal end of things, some kind of non-toxic shot. And after that, I have some. You don't have to get in the water. I have some customers that have been with me over 20 years, and they love to get out of the boat and be in the water. So they'll be back in those situations this year, and they'll love it. Helping with the decoy, doing all those things that being, I want to say, more part of the hunt. Helping out in that respect. But water. I always say waterproof pants or bibs, waterproof boot, a waterproof jacket, which is usually a good windbreaker, and camouflage. But other than that,
don't show up with blaze orange if you're going to go to duck hunting with Chef Godi.
I get some of those the reversible setups, and it looks like they got a flashlight on another hood, with that orange.
Yeah.
So sometimes reversible's not the greatest, but for the most part, there's a lot of camo stuff out there. The boat tends to break the wind pretty good. It's comfortable seats. They don't need much really. Just their whatever they need to shoot with, really.
Jeff, I wish you a great season. Again, the website, themichiganexperience.com, themichiganexperience.com. If you want to go duck hunting or a waterfall hunting with Captain Jeff Godi on Saginaw Bay, that's how you can get in touch with him, themichiganexperience.com. Thanks, Doug. Have a good season.
All right, Mike. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. Captain Jeff is a guy I rely on in the summertime. If I can't find fish, he's one of my guys. Hey, Jeff, help me out, will you? Can you help a brother out? And he always does, and I appreciate that. We'll take a break. When we come back, Nick Green of MUCC checks in right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us in the Upe on WTIQ in Manistee 1490 AM 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by, speaking of the Upe, Rapid River Knives. I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now, as I always do. I've sent a lot of people to Rapid River, to the showroom and online, and a lot of people have bought knives, and I've never had anybody come back and say, Avery, you steered me wrong. No, it's always, you know what, you were right. These are great knives, handmade by Craftsman in the UP at the Rapid River Knife Works factory just outside Rapid River on US 2. By the way, they also have a beautiful, very impressive showroom there just east of town. Stop by and check it out. Fillet knives, folding knives, gutting knives, skinning knives, axes, hatchets, kitchen knives, you name it, all handmade, again, by Craftsman. Check them out. The website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. I want to turn our attention now to friends at MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs, a group I think is doing a great job defending, protecting, encouraging, educating us about our conservation, natural resources issues. Nick Green is their Chief Information Officer with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Nick, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's always good to be here.
Always a pleasure. What's going on in your world, buddy?
We are getting ready for our Michigan Out of Doors Youth Pheasant Hunt this weekend. So when folks will be hearing this, we'll be out in the field with 12 kids that we've hopefully had at camp or had some other touch point with them where we kind of introduce them to MUCC and conservation. And then this will hopefully be that second or third step in getting them out shooting some clays and then out shooting some pheasants on a game preserve. We'll do that from noon to 4 on Saturday and hopefully have some smiles and feed them and teach them a little bit about conservation and bird hunting and how to clean those birds. So it's something we do every year in coordination with the Abrams Foundation, and we're excited to do it again this year.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love this concept of getting kids, obviously, involved in the outdoors. And are these kids, Nick, that wouldn't be exposed to the outdoors through their family, like many of us were brought up? You know, our dads, granddads, grandmas taught us how to hunt and fish. Are these kids who would not have this experience?
I would say that about half have been, half to two-thirds probably, which is a pretty good ratio when you think about a lot of the Learn to Hunt events we have with kids. You know, oftentimes it's mom or dad or grandpa or grandma forcing them to kind of go and partake in the lifestyle. But we have kids from across the Lower Peninsula coming. So as far over in the thumb, we're going to be in Marion, which is in northwest Michigan. As far as the thumb, southeast Michigan, you know, people are traveling 3 to 4 hours. Last year I was able to guide for 3 young ladies, 2 of which had never killed anything and had never fired really at a flying bird. One of them was able to get their first pheasant and shot clays and was breaking it before that. So, you know, those are opportunities where those young women probably wouldn't have been able to get outside or wouldn't have had that opportunity this early in their lives. And we were proud to be a part of that, and we try to stay in touch with them and continue to work with them through their journey of hunting. That's what's important with R3 is we don't want just a one-off day event that ends. We want to continue to work with them, talk with them, stay in contact, make sure they're still going to be conservationists whether or not they hunt.
When you say R3, what is that?
That's the recruitment, retention, and reactivation of hunters and anglers here in the U.S., and it's particularly important for hunters in our wildlife conservation funding models.
The recruitment, what is it? Recruitment what?
Recruitment, retention, and reactivation.
Retention, okay. Recruitment and retention, I get. Reactivation, I find that especially interesting.
It is, you know, so that really applies to maybe folks who have just aged out of a certain type of hunting or only were kind of a one-trick pony and just don't do that anymore. You know, we don't see a lot of crossover as much as we did. So deer hunters also hunting squirrels like they did when they were younger or doing small game. So any of that can kind of mean reactivation, aside with the obvious, you know, when someone lapsed from buying a license. We want to know why. We want to engage them again and understand how we can bring them back in and what would get them hunting again.
You say something that makes me think of how hunting has changed. You know, it used to be, again, I hate to sound like an old guy, but when I was a kid growing up, we were generalists. We hunted whatever season it was. Now I feel like hunters in general have become specialists. You know, oh, I'm a deer hunter. And you're right. They tend to overlook squirrel hunting. I do it. I tend to concentrate on a couple of topics and I forget about the other things. So it's a good perspective you bring up, Nick.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, I've had conversations at length with our former wildlife chief here in Michigan about kind of this idea that we aren't generalist hunters anymore, and we're becoming very niche. And you know, there's not a lot to say good or bad, but you know, it's certainly something that is happening, a trend we have to kind of note and figure out how to adjust accordingly, policy wise and in natural resources management wise.
Have you had a chance to get out and do any bird hunting for fun?
I have. So I was able to get out for the youth weekend. Got a pair of twin boys out both days. They took their wood duck limits and teal, and then got them out again the next day, and they took some more wood ducks. And then I've been out bird hunting up in the UP a little bit, and was able to get a woodcock and a grouse. So it's been a good year so far. It's early, but October is kind of when all that really starts to kick off for me.
Wonderful, Nick. Appreciate that. The website, mucc.org, mucc.org. If you want to sign up to become a first-time MUCC member, don't hesitate to use my promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE. Great organization to be a part of, and Nick Green does a wonderful job. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, I'll be honest with you, I've been waiting on a couple of answers, and I don't have them yet. So we'll see what happens in the Ask Avery segment coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC, AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ, 1320 AM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends from Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Security Credit Union, one of Michigan's fastest growing credit unions, and for good reasons. They're great people to work with. Again, check them out online at securitycu.org. Now, just a reminder, the way the Ask Avery segment works, this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can ask me a question directly, something that you would like me to answer, or something I can pass along to folks in the DNR or MUCC, maybe somebody that you might not have access to, but maybe I can get to. The best way to send me these questions, by the way, is via email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. In the subject line, please put Ask Avery. It'll help me keep track of things. And actually, as I came in the studio here this morning, I had a couple of Ask Avery questions that I had posed out to some different people in a couple of organizations and thought that I would have those answers by now. I'm not. I apologize for that. So let me take just a couple of seconds to talk about a couple of other things that kind of came up maybe throughout the show this week. Number one, Nick Green was just talking about how we in the outdoors, as an overall community, and I'll be honest, I hate that term community, but okay, an overall group, we have become specialists and more narrow-minded in a lot of ways. And again, it used to be if you were a hunter, you started out the fall season hunting squirrels, and then you would go to pheasants, maybe waterfowl, depending on what part of the state you lived in, maybe grouse. And then you'd go to deer hunting, and then you'd go to rabbit hunting throughout the wintertime. And that's what you did. You took advantage of whatever season was open for you. We've gotten away from that. We've become more specialists. Say, for example, if you're a deer hunter these days, that's pretty much all consuming, isn't it? Because in the summertime, you're putting out you're putting in your food plots, and then you're putting your cameras out there, and you're keeping an eye on your deer throughout the entire year. And then you're hunting so many different seasons, right? You've got the special early doe season, you've got the youth hunt, you've got the early antlerless, then you've got the regular bow season, then you've got the firearm season, then you've got the December doe season, the late season, whatever. I'm not sure. I don't know. And I'm guilty of this too. I get it. Not with deer hunting so much, but I get it. I have my interests. I have my passions. And again, they're walleye fishing, turkey hunting, and bear hunting. Although this year's bear hunts were in some ways a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is. Not so much of a deer hunter these days. In fact, as we are in the studio right now, I haven't even picked up my crossbow yet. I will, hopefully by the time this show airs, I'll go out and shoot it and make sure it's dialed in. But I can't get that excited about it anymore. In some ways I feel bad because I don't have that passion for deer hunting that I used to. But, I've had a lot of things happen surrounding deer hunting that have just kind of made me lose some of my desire, or certainly passion. That's the better word. Some of my passion. I will continue to deer hunt just because I want to continue to be a part of this Michigan deer hunting tradition, but I just can't get that excited about it. What else? I've talked about in the past here how one of the reasons I like bear hunting is because I like bear meat, but I've always said, I like bear burgers and I like bear brats, but, don't give me a bear steak or don't give me a bear roast. I tell you what, I kind of had that experience changed when I was in the UP last week bear hunting. My good friend Tony Clor said he brought up a bear roast that he had made. And he said, you've got to try this. I'm like, no, I'll pass. He says, look, and I know you don't like bear roast. You got to try this. So he was staying in one place, I was staying in another. He sent me back to the room with a Ziploc full of this bear roast. I came back in from hunting one night and I was really hungry. I said, okay, I'll put it in the microwave and I'll try it. Oh my goodness. And I have found out that bear, like most other wild games, it all depends on how you cook it up. Tony, it turns out, is a really darn good cook. And he made this bear roast that it was just fantastic. So, Tony, I appreciate that. You have opened my eyes to the joys of bear other than just bear burger and bear brats. But I do love my bear burger and bear brats. Again, I apologize for not having a very specific and well-organized Ask Avery segment this week. I will do my best next time. By the way, if you want to pose a question to me, again, the best way to get them to me is Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It can be a question you want me to answer, or maybe somebody in a DNR or something that you can't quite get to, but maybe I can. I will be happy to pass your question along. Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And as always, a big thanks to our friends at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Dr. Mike Stewart, audiologist and avid hunter, on protecting your hearing from gunshots. That's in hour 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 AM and FM radio stations across the great state of Michigan. How is your month of Rocktober going? Have you had a chance to get out and do anything fun? Fall colors, just this last week, have really started to take off. I was up in the UP last week, up there for a bear hunt, by the way. And I was surprised at the lack of color at that point. But in the last week, as I say, even downstate where I live, the colors have really started to come on. Nothing like a fall day, right? Low humidity. You get those bluebird skies, and you get some red maples and some yellow popples in front of them, and the sun behind your back, and it's breathtaking, isn't it? It's just a wonderful, wonderful time of year. At least I think so. I think it's probably my favorite time of year. I don't necessarily like what's coming behind it anymore, but I do love the fall. You know, I think about the different ways that we pursue our outdoor passions and enjoy our outdoor lifestyles. For the most part, what we do, hunting and fishing, shooting and trapping, are very, very safe, statistically very safe. People say, oh, you know, well, you're dealing with guns. These are non-gun people, right? You're dealing with guns. That must be dangerous. No, not at all. Statistically, hunting is exponentially more safe than, say, downhill skiing or rollerblading. You're more likely to get hurt doing something like that than you are hunting. We spent a lot of time in the last few years, you know, talking about hunter safety and teaching kids and adults to be safe while in the woods and safe around guns and such. But not until recently has the whole concept of, hey, there's something else when you talk about guns, and that's hearing loss. And a lot of people my age and younger suffer from it. I suffer from it. My hearing is just, it's bad. It's really bad. And a lot of that I attribute to gunshots. In fact, there was one time a few years ago, I mean, this has been a few years now, but my buddy had a 45. I'd never shot a 45 before, and he had a couple boxes of shells, and I went through that whole box of shells, and by the end of the afternoon, my ears were ringing so bad, and I couldn't hear anything except for muffled sound for a couple of days. I did damage. I screwed myself up, and it's my own fault. Dr. Mike Stewart is an audiologist who's been concentrating on this area of shooting and hunting and hearing loss because he is a hunter. And I like that about him. He's a hardcore hunter who just happens to be an audiologist. He's my go-to guy when we come to talk about the concept of shooting, damaging your hearing, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Doc, welcome back to the show. How have you been? Doc, you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Hey, how have you been, Mike?
Good. Pretty good. Yeah, I've had like 10 beautiful days in a row. I mean, how can you complain about that?
It's a great time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, I was in the UP last weekend, too, and just like you, I thought, where's all the color?
Yeah.
And all the way up. And then coming back, the color started to pop, so even in the lower. But on the way up, it was, and even in the UP, it was still pretty green.
Yeah. What were you doing? Were you hunting up there, Mike?
With sort of. I was going to, but I never did make it out. It was just too nice, Mike. It was 65 degrees and pure sun, and, what am I going to do if I shoot a deer,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I scouted around. I went, checked out my blinds, and checked my camp. We're getting some pretty nice bucks up there now this year. Long time coming, I'll tell you that.
Is it because the guys in your group are becoming more selective, or why are you seeing these bigger bucks, do you think?
I'm not really sure. Down here, it's in the lower where I live in the Lansing area, it's definitely because we're more selective. We started a program about 3 or 4 years ago where we just don't shoot small bucks. And now, instead of going out and seeing, 2 or 3 small bucks, we go out and see 2 or 3 big bucks. It really does work. You just have to wait a couple of years, and then it all catches up. But up there, it's just big woods, and there's a lot of predators. And if you have a really harsh winter, the deer usually could, rebound from that. But with the wolves and the bears and the coyotes and everything else that's up there, mountain lions also, they don't rebound as well. So I guess maybe it's probably due to those 2 factors: the severity of the winter, and then what the predator situation is.
Mike, I know you've retired from CMU. Do you still have a practice, or are you retired completely now?
Well, I'm actually retired. I don't have a practice anymore. I sold that, but I still am involved in firearm noise research. As a matter of fact, we just had our 14th annual what we call Rudyard Shoot-a-thon, where we go up in the Rudyard, Michigan area in the UP, and we have a camp up there and, test a variety of different firearms and ammunition and with and without suppressors. And we're really trying to work toward getting a standard, American National Standard Institute, ANSI standard on measurement of suppressors, because right now there is not one.
How did you?
We're kind of working on that, but some other things too.
Well, how did you end up? I mean, 'cause you're well known across the country for this area of your research. How did you end up in this specific part of audiology?
Actually, I was dating a speech pathologist at the time, and got interested in audiology because they're fairly related fields. And then I took my first hearing test when I was a master's student at Western, and found out I had a real severe high-frequency hearing loss that I wasn't even aware of it. And I was only in my early 20s, and so I thought, well, this is kind of crazy, and it's related to the shooting for sure. It's a shooter's audiogram. The left ear is worse than the right, and it just kind of evolved when I got into Central Michigan and started doing research. I started working with jays, and we did a lot of research out of jays in a mobile unit, and with hunters and hunter surveys and testing hunters' hearing, and it just kind of evolved, Mike. And because I had the interest in hunting, and then also the interest in audiology.
So, is it a one-time event? Can we go out one time like I did shooting that 45, like a stupid kid? Can we damage our ears there in one shooting session, or is it something that it takes years to happen?
There's no question it can happen with one shooting session, or even worse, Mike, one shot. It depends on the acoustic environment, how close your ear is, whether you have a big bore gun. I mean, big bore pistols are probably the worst because they have a short barrel, and so the impulse is closer to the ear. And some of these big bore pistols put out over 170 decibels of sound, and that's enough to cause hearing loss with one shot if you're not careful. And then also you have to be aware of your shooting environment. If you're shooting in an enclosed blind, wow, that can really increase the sound pressure level. Or if you're shooting in a wooded area where you might get reflections off a tree. There's a lot of factors, Mike, and the best thing is to protect yourself with either hearing protection or use of a suppressor, or both.
I was talking with Jerry Widener of the Hunter Safety System on the show last week, and in our conversation, we kind of decided that, young hunters coming up these days put on a safety harness as just part of their gear. They accept that is part of the process of hunting. Will we ever get there with hearing protection? Can we ever get these young hunters to do whatever they need to and just accept it as part of the garb, part of the routine?
Well, we're certainly trying, I'll say that. Within the last 10 years or so, there's been a lot of improvement in hearing protection for shooters, including the nonlinear stuff that lets softer sound through but attenuates louder sounds. And this is, non-electronic stuff, which is, $10, $15 for a pair of these, all the way up to real sophisticated in-the-ear electronic devices. And I would say, that's the top of the line, and that it allows you to hear very well. But when you pull the trigger with the electronic ear protection, it squelches the sound automatically. So you get about 25 decibels of attenuation, which is usually adequate.
We're talking with audiologist and hunter, Dr. Mike Stewart, about shooting and hearing loss. Listen, if you've been shooting for a long time and you haven't been taking care of your ears, your hearing, you've probably got some loss. I know I have. I mean, it drives me crazy, but it drives my wife even more crazy. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show, continue our conversation with Mike Stewart about how to protect your ears, how to be smart. Don't be stupid. Teach you how to be smart. Save your hearing right here on Outdoor Magazine. Ever thought about how much money you have in your hunting and fishing equipment? I bet the answer would surprise you. And what if you had to replace that gear? Could you even do it? Well, the right insurance company can make that job a little easier. And that's why I go with the Yider Insurance Group. The folks at Yider and their partner Auto Owners Insurance can make sure... You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us over in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based VersaSkins. Owner Paul Perrone came up with a great concept. He's like, why do you spend all this money on different hunting suits? Why not buy one good quality suit and then snap on and zip on an outer layer, a shell that changes the pattern? You can go from blaze orange to upland to snow camo. And I mean, literally, it takes just a few seconds. It's a great, great concept. Check out the website, versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. Now VersaSkins 2, offered in sizes for bigger hunters. Listen, as a former bigger hunter, I know it can be hard to find, hunting clothes in those bigger sizes. Well, VersaSkins has you covered, literally. Check them out online at versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. Talking now with audiologist and avid hunter, Dr. Mike Stewart, about shooting and hearing loss. Mike, you said there are certain factors involved. Distance from your ear, the bore. What else? What else should we keep in mind here?
Well, the choice of caliber, a 300 Win Mag. Do you really need that for whitetails? Probably not. It's awfully loud. It's one of the loudest guns. A 30-06 is awfully loud. So maybe a smaller caliber, 7mm 08. But also, Mike, what's happening in the ammo industry is they're developing a lot of subsonic ammunition for these popular hunting guns, even the larger calibers. And that significantly reduces the sound pressure level compared to the supersonic. And so then maybe you choose a single shot or a bullet action rather than a semi-automatic to, reduce the chances of rapid fire. Let's face it, if you don't hit a whitetail on the first shot, you're probably not going to hit it on the second, third, or fourth shot.
Right.
Because it's going to be off and running. So the choice of calibers, the choice of ammunition. Now, the subsonic stuff, I probably wouldn't go beyond 50 to 75 yards with it, but most deer in Michigan, I think, are probably shot at distances below 50 yards. And so that could be a factor, too. But then you can get into the hearing protection, and you can use the nonlinear devices. There's a lot of them on the market. Or the electronic devices, but also the suppressor. And hopefully we'll soon be able to have suppressors more readily available to the general public. Right now, it's a real hassle to get a suppressor. You got to go through a fairly complicated paperwork situation. But I know the American Suppressor Association, I was just talking to the president the other day, and they're making some headway with the legislatures, even in this environment, where at some point you might be able to go into a gun shop and buy a suppressor off the shelf.
Isn't that crazy that we can't do that right now? I'm waiting on a suppressor for my 350 Legend. And
oh yeah,
and
that's a real nice gun, Mike.
Oh, I love that. I'm real happy with it.
I got a 450 Bushmaster, and I wish I would have waited for the 350 because the 350 is just as deadly, and it's a lot quieter and a lot less recoil. That 450 Bushmaster, we measured the sound pressure level at my left ear, and it was 171 decibels.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
that is way loud.
And
I have a suppressor for that too now, and that does help. But yeah, I had to go through and then you have to wait for about a year.
Yeah. What was the sound level on the 350 as opposed to the 450?
We haven't tested the 350. I haven't been able to get a hold of one of those yet. Last year, a couple of my friends were trying to buy that 350 or even 450, and you just couldn't buy them. You couldn't find any in Michigan because they've become so popular. They've replaced in the lower part here in Zone 3.
Yeah. They've
really replaced the shotgun. And so a lot of people, if it's a straight wall cartridge over 35 caliber, you can use it down here. And so that 357 or that 350 Legend is and the 450 Bushmaster very popular.
Now, yeah, I'm really looking forward to putting a suppressor on that thing. If say in the 350, if you put a suppressor on that, do you still need hearing protection, or are you good to go?
No, I think you still need hearing protection, Mike, because the sound levels are so high without the suppressor. They're in the 165, 170 range. You can knock that down by 20 decibels, and that should be fairly safe. But like I said, the acoustic environment makes a difference also. So I would say you would still need ear protection, hearing protection, but a different type of hearing protection. Not one that has an NRR of 30 decibels and sit in a blind with that in your ears, and I would not recommend it. So you can get very light attenuation, 9-10 decibels to go along with a suppressor, and that would really put you in a safe zone, I think, or using the nonlinear devices or the electronic devices. But yeah, I think you still need your hearing protection, but a different type of hearing protection, not the old traditional foam plugs.
Well, yeah, and let's talk about that a little bit because, yeah, the foam plugs, they do a good job on the range, but I'm not going to use them in the woods because I want to hear what's coming in. The muffs that go over my head that I use on the range, same thing. I'm not going to use those in the woods. So what are my options there in a hunting situation?
Well, any of the nonlinear devices, the insert plugs, you can go on the I usually go to Hearing Plug Superstore on the internet, or you can just Google, electronic hearing protection, nonlinear hearing protection. The nonlinear stuff is really good, Mike, because it's designed to let softer sounds through, like game approaching and all that, but attenuate loud impulse noise.
So is the nonlinear...
They're very reasonably priced because it's non-electronic.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out the difference here. Non-linear, is this like the old Walker's Game Ear? Is that what we're talking about?
No, that's an electronic device.
Okay, so what is a non-linear?
Devices are just like a regular plug, but they've been designed, engineered to let softer sounds through, but yet attenuate loud impulse noise. And that type of hearing protection is advisable, I think, especially if you're going to be using a suppressor.
So give me some examples of what am I looking for? What do they look like? How much do they cost? Any brand names? Because I'm not sure I understand what these are, Doc.
Well, the brand name, one of the brand names is Combat Arms, and they used to have a double-sided one, and now they've gone to a single-sided one with sort of a cover to it. But they're just like regular, insert plugs. It looks just like a regular plug, except of the design of it. And they're usually engineered, like I said, with the type of material that they're using to let soft sound through and attenuate loud sounds.
Oh, I'm looking at these online right now. These aren't expensive either.
No, $10-12 a pair.
Well, you know what? And I'm preaching to the choir here. I get this, but even if they were expensive, how much is your hearing worth?
Right. That's true, and that's why I say, if you're going to be an avid hunter and you really want to hear, I would really recommend the in-the-ear electronic devices. They're going to run you, $500 to $800, even more if you get some, all the bells and whistles, that you really don't need. But if you just get the regular, in the ear electronic devices that just have a volume control to it, you're probably going to be well under $1,000. But I've had mine since 2001, and I would have had them this year, except my dog chewed them up, so I had to get new ones.
So they last a long time, and
they last a long time. And like I put in usually of the batteries because I'm hunting most of the time during gun season and then muzzleload season. Usually I only go through 1 or 2 batteries. And they do last a long time because you're using them usually for 4 or 5 hours a day, maybe 3-4 days a week for a couple months, and so and then you clean them up, put them in storage, and the next year they're ready to go again.
Would you have to go to an audiologist then to get fitted for something like that?
Yeah, it's advisable. You can buy over-the-counter stuff like the Walker Game Ear that comes with a foam plug. That you use to, couple it to the ear. But they're almost as much as an in-the-ear device. And the in-the-ear device, you get a lot less wind noise. You can localize sound a lot better. The problem with the over-the-ear or, behind-the-ear devices is you get wind noise because the microphone is, facing front forward. And then your localization ability, because the microphone is not inside the ear, inside the pinna, the ear, your localization ability is not as good. So I really like the in-the-ear devices, and it really is a one-time investment for, I would say at least 10 to 15 years.
But if somebody's talking to you, you can still hear them through those things, right?
Oh yeah, because it's just a mild gain amplifier. So you put them in the ear just like you would an in-the-ear hearing aid. Put them in the ear. Turn the volume up so you can hear well, and you get, mild amplification, not a lot. But then when there's a loud impulse noise, the electronic circuitry automatically shuts down immediately. So it protects you from, and so they change from being a mild gain amplifier to being a very good ear protection when you pull the trigger.
Well, let's hope that they make that switch, right? Otherwise, you're in trouble.
Yeah, no, it's pretty foolproof because the electronic circuitry it just freezes, and
gotcha.
So it like I said, it becomes a hearing protection when there's a loud sound.
Hey, Doc, listen, I got to take a break. I want to offer you the coveted third segment. Can you stick around and talk about this a little bit more?
Sure.
All right, we're talking with audiologist Dr. Mike Stewart, who is also an avid hunter, and he's one of the leading researchers in the country on this whole concept of shooting and hearing loss and how you can protect your hearing. You may go, it's not a big deal. You know what, though? If you've lost some of your hearing, it is a big deal. We'll talk about that and more after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Muskegon on WKBZ, that's 1090 AM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. You can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM 790 AM 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now for this 3 hours, this one small corner of the building. I call it the Outdoor Magazine studio. The rest of the week, Pat Johnston calls it his studio. Pat's in here with me now, doing a wonderful job. As always, Pat, I do certainly appreciate it. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway for you in your backyard as they have for me. And it is the time of year when you can really use Reader services. Fall cleanup. Do you really want to take time from your time off is limited and it's valuable, right? If you've got a day to do something, if you've got a day off work, wouldn't you rather be out hunting or fishing instead of working in the yard or on the property? let the guys from Reader do it. They do a great job. They'll get it done quick, fast. Time to blow out the sprinkler systems, Reader can do that. If you're looking for snow removal this winter, Reader can help you out with that as well. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. I want to wrap up our conversation now with audiologist Dr. Mike Stewart about shooting and hearing loss. Doc, if somebody is suffering from this hearing loss, is it something that, do we know it right away? Are we even always aware that we have hearing loss, or do we have to rely on people around us to say, hey, what's wrong with your hearing? What do you usually see?
Yeah, that's right. Especially in a spouse situation where usually maybe the male has a hearing loss and the female has a high frequency voice that's softer. That's where you run into problems. And being able to hear that, you can hear usually with this type of hearing loss, Mike. It doesn't affect the low frequencies hardly at all. So door slamming, people walking, or any low frequency sound you hear like you normally do. And so what happens is you hear the vowel sounds in our language, which are low frequency and loud, but you don't hear the high frequency consonant sounds, which are high frequency and softer. And so speech sounds mumbly, like people are not speaking clearly. And so that really starts an argument like, you have a hearing loss. No, you don't speak clearly. And so I can't tell you how many times I've seen that over the years. And it's usually someone, drags the guy in, or the person that has the hearing loss in and said, please help this person, because they're really not aware of the hearing loss, especially in the early stages, because they hear a lot of things normally, but they don't hear speech as well. And then you get into a situation like a restaurant or a crowded situation, and it becomes almost impossible. And that's what it really shows itself then, because then the background noise just masks out all the hearing that you do have.
Doc, you have described my hearing to a T, and you didn't even examine me.
Yeah, I can tell you what your audiogram looks like, Mike. just based on your past hunting experience. But I say this, and I've told you this every time we talk about this, you really need to come in and get a hearing aid, or at least try them, because you would be surprised. These hearing aids today are way better than they used to be, and inconspicuous, great sound quality, directional microphones, noise reduction systems. And so it's well worth the investment, and I think you'd be very pleased. And when you go to an audiologist, they're always going to have a trial period where you can try these devices for 30 or maybe even up to 60 days. And if you don't like them, you can return them for a full refund. So it's not a gamble if it doesn't work out for you.
Do the hearing aids, and the fact that I'm even having this discussion is a I'm getting older, Doc, but do these hearing aids, do they act as ear protection, sound suppression systems too?
Well, not. It depends on the coupling device. With the behind the ears, with the smaller acoustically transparent coupler device, then no, it doesn't. If you use a behind the ear or in the ear that does not have a vent and maybe is made out of silicone, yes, then it could be. But typically not. I would say if you, even with a hearing loss, you probably would want to go to a real electronic hearing protection device rather than a hearing aid. But like I said, it depends on the coupling system. I've adapted people's behind-the-ear hearing aids with a silicone ear mold with no vent, and in that case, it offers great hearing protection because it's an electronic device. It will amplify sound, but if there's a real loud sound, it freezes a circuit, electronic circuit, and there's just no output.
Doc, listen, I got to let you go. I always enjoy our conversations because I think this is a real problem and it often gets overlooked. And I appreciate the research you've done and the promotion of this topic. And I'll wish you a wonderful hunting season. And one of these days, I'll come in and see you. I promise.
Yeah, and if you want to test that 357 or that 350 Legend, we'll probably be doing a shoot-a-thon next year. So.
All right. Appreciate it. Dr. Mike Stewart right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. So glad to have you along with us. If you ever want to reach out to me, the email address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. If you've been with us before, you know I love to wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, good friend of mine, has been for many years, an absolute master with fish and wild game, and I look forward to these segments because as we are recording the show, it's almost lunchtime, and I'm hungry by now, and Dave always makes me even more so. David, welcome back. How you doing?
Very nice, Mike. And yourself? You've been out in the woods, have you?
Not since I got back from the bear hunt. I actually took the opening day. This is crazy. I took the opening day of bow season. I played golf.
Well, good for you.
It seemed like a good thing to do. Yeah, well, it was a riot. Absolutely a riot. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I've been in the woods and just seen does and little fawns and spike, and that's about it. Nothing like what's been on the cameras. So we'll have to see.
Where do those big bucks go that you see on camera? Do they crawl in holes in the ground or what?
Yep, the buck hole.
The buck hole, yep. So what do you have for us this week, David?
Well, those that were lucky enough to score already, the tenderloins are usually the first thing you want to get out of that deer. So we have a tenderloin steak with apples and morels, and we have this at the restaurant too. So you're going to need, this would be for 4 portions, so you're going to need about 7 to 8 ounces of venison per person. And you could actually use these as medallions on this, on the tenderloin. So you want to trim it up real good, cut it across the grain, and maybe inch and a half thick steaks or medallions. Put it between saran wrap, pound it down real nice and good and tender, and that'll help break it up, and it won't draw up because the meat has got them long filaments. You know, the grain, they have a tendency to draw up. So you need anywhere from 10 to 12, 14 ounces of morels washed and desanded, or you can get wild blend mushrooms at the grocery store or whatever you prefer. You know, for easeability, it's just up to you. You'd have to rehydrate the dried mushrooms, though. You need 2 apples peeled and sliced about a quarter of an inch thick, a small can of artichoke hearts quartered up, a medium onion diced fine, 1 jar of beef gravy, and if you make your own garlic butter, a couple teaspoons of that, if not 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. You need 2 to 3 ounces of apple schnapps, 2 to 3 ounces of burgundy, flour, and olive oil. Excuse me. So you're going to dredge the medallions or steaks. If you're going to use leg steaks, that's fine too. Just pound it down, make sure it's good and tender. So dredge them in flour in a real hot pan. You want to sear it on both sides with a small amount of olive oil. After you brown both sides, remove them and keep them off to the side. Maybe you don't even have to have a warm plate because this is going to take a while to reduce all of this down. You want a highly concentrated flavor. So in the same pan, you're going to saute the onions and the garlic if you're using fresh garlic. Cook that a couple minutes just to break the flavor loose. And then you're going to add the apples and morels and the garlic and saute that up a little bit. And away from the hood stove, add the burgundy wine first and then the schnapps. And then it might not flare up as bad because you want to reduce all of that liquid down a lot because you want a nice, thick, creamy sauce. It's been highly reduced down to concentrate the flavor. So if it does have a flame, add flambe. So you're gonna take that and reduce that down to a third of its original volume with the beef gravy. Put the thing on high and stir it a lot so that it's not going to scorch, because the sweetness of the schnapps and the apples, and there's a lot of sugar in there, so you're going to have to be careful you don't burn it. So after you get that reduced down, and you're going to notice the color and all of that, how it's going to look. It's going to look almost like a burgundy kind of a color, because of the wine, and the apple schnapps is red. So after you get that nicely reduced down, and I would put a couple pats of fresh butter. If you're not going to make garlic butter and just use diced garlic, that's going to velvetize that sauce. It's going to give it a wonderful sheen, and you want to do that at the end before you put the meat back in, and get that stirred around real good. Add the meat, and you want to eat these tenderloin medallions or leg steaks as rare as possible to get that nice, good, hearty flavor that we like, and it's not going to be tough or leather-like. Okay, man, oh man, we sell this at the restaurant whenever we have it on special, and it goes like crazy. And we do have it on special just for a little while in honor of this recipe. So,
and where do we find the
come on
restaurant?
down and get it.
Well, where do we find you?
Well, Oscar and Joey's Roadhouse on the corner of Birch Run Road, Dixie Highway, in beautiful downtown Birch Run.
How's that?
Exit 136.
How's that new puppy?
Oh my God, it's so cute and he's so cool. I'm telling you, he was like 40 pounds at 12 weeks.
He's going to be a big dog. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you, because if you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this show. I don't know what I would do at this point. I don't know how to do anything else. Hey, check out the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't forget our Wednesday night lives on social media every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. I hope you get a chance. Get out and enjoy the beautiful fall weather, and I will talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.